Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Lucha Underground's Luchador Spotlight. This is episode 1 of, I'm guessing, somewhere between 30 and 40, I'm not sure. And it is the first step on a massively long journey between now and January, which should hopefully be Lucha Underground Season 2, Episode 1. But until then, we are going to start this off. Episode 1, we are going to be talking about none other than Chavo Guerrero Jr.
Yeah, Chavo Guerrero, as we discussed in our Lucha Rewatch series, had a far more prominent role in season one than we originally gave him credit for. So, this video here will just be a quick overview of his road and some speculation about where season two might take him. So, Ashton, where would you like to start?
Well, let's start at the beginning. Let's go back, and for those that haven't seen Lucha Underground Season 1 yet, let's do a brief introduction of who Chavo Guerrero is, what he did in Season 1 that was notable. Let's just kind of talk about his Season 1, adventure. How does that sound?
That sounds great to me.
Okay, it's worth noting that Chavo was in the first ever Lucha Underground match. Episode 1, the first match on the show, Blue Demon Jr. versus Chavo. Chavo did end up losing the match, though. He tapped out to Blue Demon's submission El Pulpo, which is the sharpshooter where he's actually pulling the arm back while the sharpshooter is locked in. And then later on in that same episode, we saw Chavo getting confronted by Dario Cueto, who tells him that because of the fact that Chavo lost, that he was going to have to bring in somebody that could retire Blue Demon Jr. because that's what Chavo was supposed to do. And he even hints towards the end, he says 1,000 deaths might be coming for us all. So now, not only did Chavo participate in the first ever match of Lucha Underground, but he is also believed to be the reason that Mil Muertes was even brought in the first place.
Exactly, because of his inefficiency to get the job done against Blue Demon, that unleashed Mil Muertes. So, very interesting there.
So then in episode 2, he teamed up with Sexy Star to take on Ivelisse and Son of Havoc. And they won because he hit a frog splash on, I believe it was Son of Havoc, and then tagged in Sexy Star for a roll-up win. And then later that night, he turned on Sexy Star, or on Blue Demon, I think it was. He comes out, it looks like he's going to save Blue Demon, ends up cracking him over the head with the chair. Then Sexy Star comes out to help. He cracks her over the head with the chair as well.
Lays out everybody with a steel chair. It was, I think, one of the first really standout moments of Lucha Underground Season 1 for me. So, yeah, this is a great turn.
Absolutely. So then the following episode, episode 3, we were introduced to El Mariachi Loco and Mascarita Sagrada, and when Sagrada wins with a guillotine small package combination, Chavo hits the ring and puts the boot to Mascarita, which draws the admiration of Vampiro, because Vampiro just loves violence and apparently wasn't a big fan of Mascarita.
Yeah, this is Chavo just continuing to try and make an impact his own way here.
And speaking of Vampiro, that same episode we got, and this is episode 3 now, we got a sit-down interview with Vampiro, with Chavo. Vamp asked him who he really was, and Chavo said that he has been doing it their way, meaning the Guerrero way, out of respect, and that he was not going to do it anymore. He's tired of Blue Demon living off of his father's legacy. He's tired of being brought in as the opponent, as someone that would make the other guy look good, and that he was going to be bringing the violence. He says that he doesn't hate Blue Demon. He just hates that for a second he himself thought the Blue Demon might have been better than he was, and that Chavo is here to stay.
Yeah, great interview from Chavo. Again, really establishing why he's come to Lucha Underground. He's tired of being in the background. He wants to be at the forefront. So this is solid stuff here.
I think it's worth pointing out the irony here, though, because he said, "Oh, I'm here to stay," and yet we know that later on in the season he did end up being one of the only people to actually tell Cueto that he quits. He just left the temple for a while.
Exactly.
Now that didn't happen yet, though, because later on in the same night we saw him backstage meeting up with Conan. And this was a bit of a warning. Conan told Chavo that La Raza in Mexico found out about Blue Demon and Sagrada, and he basically told him to dip. He said specifically to become extinct because they, referring to the people of Mexico, are coming. And then Conan leaves, the lights flicker, Mil Muertes shows up, and Katrina tells Chavo that he took something that didn't belong to him. Mil doesn't forget, and that one day Chavo will belong to Mil Muertes, which we didn't necessarily really see a payoff for yet. So that might be foreshadowing for season 2 even.
Yes. And yeah, just sending the warning there did Conan, and then of course the run-in with Mil Muertes. Now, was this the same episode where Chavo tries to take a shot at Mil, but Mil like straddles him by the throat, or does
No,
that
that
come
was later.
later?
That was later in
Okay,
this episode.
okay.
Yep. But then we do move on though to episode 4. I can't believe that all this stuff happened with Chavo just in the first 3 episodes. But in episode 4, Sexy Star comes out and calls him Estúpido Cobarde, which just means in Spanish, stupid coward. She's going to embarrass him, blah, blah, blah. As far as Chavo himself goes, I don't think he actually had an appearance on this episode.
I don't think so either.
But then in episode 5, we did get Sexy Star versus Chavo. And Sexy grabbed a chair and just started going ham on Chavo. So obviously it wasn't an actual match. It got ended by DQ because even though the ref tried to stop Sexy without disqualifying her, she gave the ref a low blow. So that was not cool. But then we introduced Pentagon Jr. to the situation. He comes out, and it kind of seemed like Sexy Star was about to get teamed up on for a minute with Pentagon and Chavo getting ready to double team her. But then Phoenix came out and made the save, right?
Right.
So then after this, on episode 6, the following episode, we did get the tag team match that you would expect. Phoenix and Sexy Star versus Chavo and Pentagon Jr. Although Sexy and Phoenix did win that match.
Yes, they did pick up the victory here.
So to this day, I don't think Chavo has won a single match yet, has he?
No, he has not.
Then we get Chavo versus Phoenix with Pentagon and Sexy Star at ringside. Vampiro just talks a lot about Pentagon in this match. Of course, we do kind of get the feeling that Pentagon is really seeking Chavo's approval in this match. Pentagon grabbed Phoenix by the foot to prevent him from hitting a top rope move on Chavo while Chavo was distracting the ref. And then Chavo, this is his first win of the season, beats Phoenix with a frog splash.
Yes.
Crazy, though, to think that Chavo went all this time without winning a match. His first win is against somebody of the quality, of the prestige, of the level that Phoenix is.
Exactly. Yeah, that is very telling.
Yep. And then Sexy Star gets on the mic and tells Chavo that she's not done with him and that Blue Demon is coming back. And then she specifically says he's coming back for you, pendejo.
Yeah, so we know that this whole thing between Chavo and Blue Demon is far from over, thanks to Sexy Star.
Yeah. So then that was episode 7. On episode 8, we had 2 10-way matches. The first of which was a 10-way match that was just a regular match, elimination style, I believe. It might have been first of all to the finish. I don't remember exactly. We'll have to go back and try and recall that. But then we had a 10-way battle royal that Chavo was in. And he, from what I remember, he actually did really well in this. But I know he didn't win.
Right.
Yeah, that's right. It came down to Mil Muertes, Chavo, and Johnny Mundo. Chavo gets eliminated, and then eventually Muertes ended up winning.
Right.
Did Muertes eliminate Chavo here?
I thought Mundo eliminated Chavo.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. Okay, I just wanted to make sure. But then episode 9 was Aztec Warfare, and Chavo dominated in Aztec Warfare. I think he got more eliminations than anyone because he was the only one that really treated it like it was, which was a no disqualification, no countouts. It was just, it was just a straight up beat the hell out of everyone you can kind of match, and he brought a chair to the ring.
Yeah, that's what really made him stand out was he brought in, the chair, and he just started laying waste to everybody. And it really does further the symbolism of the chair in the first season. That was great.
Yeah, he wrecked everyone. But not only did he wreck a lot of people, but specifically he turned on Pentagon.
Yes.
This was the match where he turned on Pentagon Jr. They had been a team up until this point, and Chavo knows that this match is every man for himself, and he took advantage of that, took out Pentagon, and a lot of Lucha Underground fans, including me. I don't know about you, John, but I think this was kind of the moment, the catalyst that caused Pentagon to turn to the dark side.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, because once Chavo betrayed him, I think Pentagon just went deeper inside himself and deeper into dark places to seek that approval. So,
exactly.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah. So then we get, on episode 10, we get an in-ring segment where Chavo is in the ring and wants to apologize to Blue Demon and kind of mend the bridge that he burned between the Blue Demon family and the Guerrero family. He apologizes, but he specifically apologizes for not exposing Blue Demon as a fraud, removing his mask, and replacing it with a crimson mask. And then he kind of turns around and grabs some brass knucks, tries to attack Blue Demon, but Blue Demon ducks and takes him down and then whacks him over the head with a chair, and then again in the back, and Blue Demon, I guess, was satisfied with that.
Yeah, Blue Demon gets his comeuppance here.
So then we had a really, really brief mention of Chavo. There was a match between Pentagon Jr. and Superfly that Pentagon said in his closing statement, in his kind of closing post-match promo, I thought Chavo Guerrero was a legend. I thought he could help me, but you know what? He's a fraud. I know there's someone willing to join forces with me and is willing to help me because I'm Pentagon Jr. y cero miedo. So this was not only the first time that we really saw him come out and just say that I need somebody's help. I want somebody to join forces with me, help me. But he acknowledged Chavo turning on him and referred to him as a fraud.
Yes, so we know that that bridge is completely burned at this point.
Yeah. But then in episode 14, which is a couple episodes after that, actually, the Pentagon promo, I believe, was in 11 or 12. But in episode 14, we had the moment where Katrina, this was during the Katrina trying to hook up with Phoenix kind of storyline. And this was the segment where she told Mill that the power of 1,000 lives is valuable, and that it was that power that was too much for you. And then as she's saying, you need to, Mill grabs her by the throat and lifts her up and says, I need nothing. But then this was where Mill was walking down the hall, crosses paths with Chavo. Chavo tries to throw a punch, but Mill catches it and just stifles him.
Yeah, he totally owned Chavo here. I don't even know what Chavo was thinking to this day. That was just crazy.
So then, in episode 15, our first match was Mil Muertes versus Chavo Guerrero, and this was without Katrina. She wasn't at Mil Muertes' side because this was kind of still during the point where she was with Phoenix. Katrina did come down to the ring during the match, though, and Mil was almost hypnotized by her. Chavo hit Mil with a chair, and all it did was piss Mil off. Mil just beat the ever-loving shit out of Chavo, and then hits him with a flatliner on that same chair that Chavo attacked him with. But then we get a whole post-match segment between Katrina and Mil that isn't actually relevant to Chavo, but it is worth noting that Mil pretty much destroyed Chavo here with the chair.
Yeah, Chavo got decimated.
Yeah. So then we had a segment where Chavo quit. It was right after Cage demanding be named the Lucha Underground champion. This was in episode 15. And as Cage walked out, Chavo comes in and just kind of says, yeah, man, I'm done. I'm out. I'm leaving. And Cueto was just like, all right, I'll see ya. And Chavo was like all offended that Dario didn't fight harder for him to come back. And then Dario was just like, well, my doors are always open.
Yeah, so Dario's just like, it's no great loss. Do what you want to do. And yeah, no big deal to Dario Cueto here.
And that was in episode 15. He was completely absent from episode 16 through 27. 12 full episodes that we had no Chavo Guerrero Jr. at all. And then in episode 28, when Black Lotus left El Dragon Azteca's compound and leaves him a note saying that she's going to kill Dario's brother, Chavo shows up and says that El Dragon Azteca would need him, and that the Guerreros are liars and cheaters, but we're also familia, and that he wants El Dragon Azteca to call Mexico off. He agrees to protect her, but El Dragon Azteca says specifically, I will clear your debt as long as you protect her with your life.
Yes.
So we find out here that Chavo isn't done with the season, but now he's got a completely different job that he needs to do. He needs to protect Black Lotus with his life, and if he does, if either A, she succeeds, or B, he dies trying to help her succeed, El Dragon Azteca is going to clear his debt.
Exactly. So Chavo has a new incentive here, a new role towards the tail end of the season here.
Yep. So then in episode 29, this was kind of the moment where she was on her way to the temple. Chavo kind of cuts her off and says, you don't want to get revenge behind closed doors. You want to get revenge in the ring where everyone else can see. And then he does also tell her that the Guerreros hate the Cuetos as much as she does.
So very interesting tactics here by Chavo, appealing to her sense of pride, and then, linking it to his own family. So yeah, he just tries to keep Black Lotus at bay.
Yep. And then continuing on this story arc in episode 30, Chavo tells Dario Cueto about El Dragon Azteca's deal to erase his debt by having him protect Black Lotus with his life, but that the Guerreros are only truly loyal to the highest bidder. Cueto wants him to deliver Black Lotus's head on a silver platter. He offers round the clock protection from Mexico, and then Chavo is the one that asks for the round the clock protection. But then Cueto basically says, "All right, cool, that's I can handle that. I can do that for you. But why don't you tell me what you really want?" And we would find out what he really wanted later on when we find out other stuff that happened.
Yes, we know that Chavo's really milking this for all it's worth.
Yep.
Again, showing his true colors, anything that can benefit him. So again, Chavo really growing in prominence towards the tail end of this season.
Yeah. And then later on in that same episode, we got a really well filmed backstage segment where he tells Black Lotus that Cueto is giving her a match tonight, but then tries to punch her. She opens the locker to meet his fist and beats the crap out of him. And then the other two members, well, the remaining two members of the crew come out to aid him in beating her down to try and knock her unconscious to deliver her to Cueto. And she holds her own for a while, but 3-on-1 is just too much for anyone.
Exactly. Numbers catch up to her. Chavo is able to make good to the highest bidder, that of course being Dario Cueto.
Yeah. So after this, we had was this the point where? Oh no, you know what? This is where we had the kind of the first little extra perk that Cueto gave Chavo on top of the round the clock protection in Mexico. A match, a no disqualification match against Blue Demon Jr. And of course, it ends up being 3-on-1. Chavo, Cortez Castro, and Mr. Cisco all teaming up on Blue Demon Jr. They beat the living crap out of him. So then we see later on, though, backstage in the prison area, the jail cell area, Chavo tells Black Lotus that she shouldn't be offended, that it was just business and that he's a guerrero. She tells him that he betrayed El Dragon Azteca and that Mexico would come for him. And he says that after what he did to Blue Demon out there in the ring, Mexico isn't going to have the balls to do anything to him. So we kind of get an ulterior motive here where, sure, it would have been nice to have his debts cleared, but his plan here was to have the protection to prove the protection that he had combined with his own fighting ability was too much for anyone in Mexico to handle, and basically intimidate the people of Mexico into not doing anything about it.
Yeah, so Chavo, like, he's feeling really cocky, really confident. He feels like he has all the cards in hand, and he's got a lot of leverage right now at this point in the season.
Yeah. So then we, in a couple episodes later, on episode 34, so we're closing in on the end of the season here, we start things off with Chavo asking Cueto if he was ready to fulfill the final part of his request. And of course, Cueto kind of plays dumb. He's like, "Oh, I thought we already did that." And then Chavo's just like, "No, come on, man." And Cueto's like, I know. I was just messing with you. Tonight it's going to be you versus Prince Puma for the Lucha Underground Championship. And if Conan gets involved, Chavo automatically wins the title.
So again, going back to that leverage that Chavo has at this point in the season, the deck is really stacked against Puma, and Chavo knows it, and he wouldn't have it any other way.
Yep. It is worth noting, this doesn't actually have anything directly to do with Chavo, but it is indirectly. Later that night, we saw Conan backstage giving a bit of a pep talk to an unknown figure, saying that Chavo has a debt to pay and that he probably has something up his sleeve. So he was asking for some backup for Puma.
Yes. Just saying, yeah.
Yeah, but then Katrina confronts Chavo backstage, reminding him that Mil will destroy whoever holds the title at Ultima Lucha. So yeah, a lot of different people kind of gunning for Chavo now that he has this kind of leverage with Dario Cueto getting all these perks. No one really understands why.
Exactly. A lot of people really nipping at Chavo's heels, wanting to take him off the top of the mountain, and Chavo, though, just remains unfazed through it all.
Yep. So then we get our actual main event match, Chavo versus Puma. Chavo has the crew at ringside, Cortez Castro and Mr. Cisco, and this is for the Lucha Underground Championship, but it is worth noting that the only reason Puma won this match, which he did, was because he had the help of Tejano. So even though the stipulation was if Conan gets involved, he loses the title, Conan didn't get involved. Tejano did.
Exactly. So loopholes for the win. Chavo fails in his only Lucha Underground World Title opportunity. In a one-on-one capacity,
Yep,
and it's back to the drawing board there for Chavo Guerrero.
absolutely. So then, at the end of that same episode, episode 34, we saw Blue Demon mocking Chavo for losing, and then we kind of saw a little bit of a mind game here, where Chavo kind of gets in Blue Demon's head and taunts him about Tejano being a better representative for Mexico than Blue Demon. And boy, does it work, because Blue Demon absolutely flips his lid. He chokes Chavo and holds him up against the locker, and he's just like, "I am Mexico. I am."
Yeah, definite inferiority complex going on there,
Yeah,
and Chavo exploits it, masterfully. And you can even see like when Blue Demon releases Chavo's throat from his grip, Chavo kind of gives a little smirk. He knows what he's done. He knows the seeds that he's planted. So there's definitely a new game going on here.
yeah. But then on the following episode, we got a Tejano promo, just talking about how he's never been a nice guy, but he's always been a good representative for Mexico. And then he calls out Chavo, and he wants to settle the score with him at Ultima Lucha. And the crew does attack Tejano, but then Blue Demon comes out, and when I say the crew, in this case, it's Castro, Cisco, and Chavo. All three of them come out to attack Tejano. But then Blue Demon comes out, and it looks like he's going to attack the crew, including Chavo, but they leave the ring. They toss him a chair, and he turns on Tejano. So now, even though Chavo isn't really involved with Tejano anymore, you can clearly see that Chavo is the reason for Blue Demon Jr. turning heel in this season.
Yeah, you could almost say that he's having Blue Demon do his dirty work for him, doing
Yeah.
that heavy lifting without having to get involved.
Yep. And I believe that was actually the last that we saw of Chavo Guerrero.
Yeah, the last I can remember is he actually did make an appearance in the Blue Demon Jr. Tejano matchup at Ultima Lucha,
Yep.
and laid him out with weapons, and that's how that alliance got forged. But yeah, that's Chavo's first season in a nutshell.
That's right. So that's the basic story on what happened with Chavo Guerrero Jr. in season 1 of Lucha Underground. Now, John, what do you want to see happen with this character in season 2 going forward?
I'm really curious about this faction because you've got Chavo, who comes from a legendary family, though I wouldn't necessarily call him a legend in his own right as an individual, and Blue Demon Jr., who is a legend, along with, again, as I call them, the remnants of the crew,
Yeah.
by their side. I want to see this faction really make an impact, but it comes at such an interesting time, Ashton, because we have the Age of Death as well. It's a very dominant faction. I mean, they got all the gold right now. So I don't
Well,
really.
I think it's worth noting that Mil Muertes also, early on in the season, he put a bit of a target on Chavo, and I feel like maybe he got his revenge with the flatliner onto the chair, but I don't know. I don't think Death ever really forgets.
No, I don't think so either. So I think the big goal I would, and see, it's so difficult with Chavo because, as we discussed, he was so prominent in the first season. But I think the big thing I'd like to see him do is I'd like to see him, Blue Demon, and maybe one other person. Hell, maybe Tejano even defects and he comes around to their way of thinking. They make a
So
run
you
at the
just want to
trios
see this
titles.
turn into this big power faction.
A power faction, but specifically with Chavo in mind, I'd like to see him make a run at the trios titles because I can never really conceive of Chavo being a singles champion. That's not to be conflated with I don't ever see him being in big singles angles ever again. But I think if he was to be in the championship scene, the trios picture is more suitable for him. So I
Yeah.
think I'd like to see him, Blue Demon, and again one other person, maybe Cortez Castro, making a run for the trios titles. So.
Yeah. So I mean, I think my question is, you think it's going to be him, Cisco, and Castro? And if that's the case, what do you think Blue Demon's going to do then?
Well, I thought Blue Demon would be a part of the trios team, but that could also work. That conception you had, because that was the original thing before Blue Demon and Chavo put aside their differences.
Yeah.
Oh, Blue
So
Demon,
you think they're gonna turn face then, or do you think that the Disciples of Death are going to be face?
I think the
Or do you
disciple.
think a face team is going to win the titles off the Disciples of Death, and then those three guys are going to go after them?
See, and that's another difficult thing because I see the Disciples of Death. I don't want to say too much because I know we have future episodes here, but I really do see them having a very dominant season. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
So I could almost see them turning face in that kind of way that when a really good heel character just kind of gets the affection of the fans, that kind of way. So I could see the Disciples of Death going face and then having to fend off these legends. But I don't know. Yeah, Chavo was such an interesting piece because he was so prominent. But yeah, I say he takes a run at the trios tag team titles at some point this season. That's my big prediction for Chavo. So what
Yeah.
are you,
All right.
what?
You know, John, it's funny because I hear you over there getting ready to ask me what I think. I
Right.
honestly I have a little bit of an almost a pessimistic opinion. I feel like Chavo Guerrero existed for the sake of name recognition, season one, bring eyes to the product because it's a recognizable name that people know.
Okay.
I don't think he's going to have a very prominent part in season two.
Okay. All right.
I know that we kind of through season one we kind of agree that he might be the most underrated character in Lucha Underground based exclusively on all of the stuff that he did or caused to happen in season one, right?
Right.
Like just looking at season one, he caused Mil Muertes to get brought in. He's our current champion. He caused Pentagon Jr. to turn heel. He had an arguable match of the year candidate. He was the reason that Blue Demon Jr. turned on Mexico. There's just a lot of different things that he did throughout season one, and none of it was really him being anything great. He caused a lot of great things to happen.
Exactly.
And I don't think that that's necessarily going to happen in season two. I think that the character that's going to be more that role in season two is going to be Conan.
Right. Okay. Okay. Very interesting. I'll
If
have to.
Conan's
Yeah.
even still alive, I shouldn't make that assumption.
Right. Right. And I understand. You know when you and I were talking in
You know what?
conversation.
It might even be the character that kind of plays that behind the scenes, doing stuff that causes great things to happen role. Might just be El Dragon Azteca. Because now the guy that we knew as El Dragon Azteca is dead. And that
Yeah.
mask has now been put on a new guy who we were introduced to in the first scene of season one. The guy in the white hoodie is now El Dragon Azteca. He might end up being the reason that some great stuff happens in season two. I just don't think that Chavo is going to have this great kind of underrated season in season two like he did in season one.
Right. I agree. I could see where you're coming from with that. I think again, Chavo is kind of frustrating in a way to fantasy book because he's been like a prime mover of certain events in
Yeah.
season one, kind of like that catalyst. And
Yes.
it did
That's a
cap off
great name for him. Chavo Guerrero is the catalyst of season one.
exactly.
And you could even say that literally because he was also in the first match of season one.
Yeah, exactly.
He got the ball rolling. He was the first in a long line of dominoes.
Exactly. And it did cap off with this alliance seemingly forged between Blue Demon and Chavo.
Yep.
And I could, the funny thing is, I could see Chavo going a multitude of routes. And again, I don't want to get too much into all of them because we have so many episodes we want to cover with different people.
Yeah.
But I mean, you're talking about two guys that have a heightened sense of importance because of who they are. I could see both of them taking runs at the world titles or the gift of the gods or the tag titles. So it's really hard to see where Chavo fits. But I think Chavo's a big believer in strength in numbers, and he probably always wants to stay close by those numbers, which is probably why I tried fitting him in the trios division. So yeah, that's just kind of my thought process. And you just
Yeah.
think,
I mean,
well,
I could see him, Cisco, and Cortez challenging for the trios titles. But if anything, I feel like they would more be kind of that piece that really establishes how dominant the DoD are.
right. So really, they'd be nothing more in your eyes, even if they were in the division, as fodder to legitimize whoever the champions are, in
Right.
particular the Disciples of Death.
Correct. Yeah.
Interesting, interesting.
I think that
So
they're just going to play a really similar role to the role that the crew played in season one. They'll be Dario Cueto's go-to guys when they need somebody beat down or, a group of people that he sees as misfits taken out or whatever. But I don't think that they're ever going to be a legitimate threat to any championships. I don't think that any of the members of this little faction involving Blue Demon Jr. are going to really move any arrows, so to speak, in this season.
right, okay. I can just imagine the business cards. Crew 2.0, new members, same win-loss record.
Yeah,
But
pretty much. That's pretty much kind of how I see it. Yeah.
yeah, so we'll see. But you and I seem to have different conceptions of Chavo's second season. But yeah, that's pretty much all I've got to say about it. Because again, Chavo's so frustrating to book in that way because it's just such an ambiguous path. It's not as
Yeah.
clearly defined as say other guys.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see what happens, man.
All right. Absolutely, John. Who do we want to do on Wednesday for episode 2 of this? Do we want to talk
Ooh,
about Blue Demon?
Blue Demon does sound like a good idea. Yeah, let's get him out of the way.
All right, that's going to be a significantly shorter episode than this one because he was very sporadic appearances throughout the season. So there's going to be a lot less backstory to talk about with him. This is probably going to be one of the longest episodes. I'm guessing maybe like Puma and Mil Muertes and then that kind of stuff. They might be longer, but this is probably going to be one of the top 5 longest episodes of Luchador Spotlight. But until we see you on Wednesday, hopefully Raw tonight isn't awful, and we will see you all for our Luchador Spotlight on Blue Demon Jr., or as Matt Stryker likes to say, Blue Demon!